Yo! So a week ago we talked about Anyuta and I said that we're gonna be talking about Liberalio when she came out, and the time is now! So does she replace SBS or Asuka in the win team? Today we're gonna be taking a look at just that. As always, we'll start off by going over her kit and then take a look at her performance. But before that, like the video if you like it and subscribe if you wanna see more. With that said, let's get into it. Alright, so let's go over her skills. First off, we have skill 1 called Calm Depths. So first off, when entering full burst, she gets 160% attack for 3 seconds. Then when hitting a core with a full charge attack, she gets another 20.8% of attack damage for 60 seconds. When she hits an enemy with a full charge attack, she deals an additional damage equal to 5 times 40% of her final attack. And lastly, increases the charge speed of one V3 ally with the lowest attack by 12.7% for 10 seconds. Now for her skill 2 called Strange Currents. When attacking with full charge, if the enemy is the stage target, she gains a massive 231% attack damage. But if the enemy is not the stage enemy, her charge speed becomes exactly 1 second, and both of these conditions are mutually exclusive, so when one activates, the other one is deactivated. And lastly, her charge speed cannot be changed through any external sources. Now, last but not least, her burst skill, Submerged World, is pretty simple and straightforward. First off, we have attack damage increase by 50% for 10 seconds, and then she deals 924% of her final attack as additional damage to all enemies that are on screen. So pretty simple, and one of the few units that actually has an innate ability that makes her immune to external buffs of a certain kind. But with all that said, let's see how that plays out in battle, and let's take a look at how she performed in a team. Alright, so now let's take a look at her performance in this section. So first off, we have the Crown, Little Mermaid, Asuka, and SBS. That's Scarlet Black Shadow. And so for the most part, we're gonna be comparing Liberalio against Asuka and SBS, which are the two best win DPSs in the game. And in this particular team, we got Helm here. So this is sort of the control team where we're gonna take a look at the damage of Asuka and SBS. So first off, Asuka did 1,495,000,000 damage, whereas SBS did 1,285,000,000 damage. So then moving on to this team where Asuka is replaced by Liberalio, you can see that Liberalio did 1,408,000,000 damage as opposed to SBS's 1,275,000,000 damage, which is about 10% more than SBS. However, overall, she did about 90 million less than Asuka did in this team. Something that is worth pointing out here is that Liberalio's buff is going to Helm here when she's on the team, because Helm's attack is lower than my SBS's attack. And so this could be different person to person depending on your investment in each of these characters. But for me, whenever Helm is on the team, that buff is going to a Helm. So just keep that in mind. Anyway, moving on, we got Crown, Little Mermaid, Asuka, SBS, and Liberalio as an off-burst DPS. I just wanted to check that maybe she is going to be good as an off-burst DPS. And she is, but not as good as she is as an on-burst DPS. So here she's doing 869 million damage, and as you can see, the damage for both Asuka and SBS here went down due to the fact that Helm is not present and buffing them anymore. However, I should mention that the team damage for all three teams was about the same, so there isn't much discrepancy between the teams. Now moving on, we got the Nayuta with Helm, same basis of the team. However, here you get Asuka doing 1,382,000,000 damage and SBS doing 1,113,000,000. So this is again the control for this team with Nayuta. And here we have Liberalio replacing Asuka, and Liberalio is doing 1,337,000,000 damage, whereas SBS is doing 1,144,000,000 damage. And that is about 16 to 17% more than SBS in this team. However, overall, she is again doing a little bit less than Asuka. And lastly, again with Liberalio off burst, Liberalio is doing 941,000,000 damage, whereas SBS did 971,000,000 damage. So this is almost the same, which I was kind of surprised. So it seems that even though Liberalio excels as being on burst much more, she is also viable as an off burst wind DPS. And then last but definitely not least, here we have Crown with Nayuta ditching Helm. So we have Little Mermaid, Liberalio, and SBS. and this is by far the best win team right now. And so here in this team, Liberalio did 1,496,000,000 damage as opposed to SBS's 1,459,000,000 damage. And in this team, the buff from Liberalio is actually benefiting SBS. So as you can see that they are quite the same in this team as opposed to having this discrepancy in these teams right here. So Liberalio in this team with Nayuta and Crown is only about 2.5% better than SBS. And aside from that, I wanted to test both the shotgun team and electric team, because these are the two teams that don't really have a wind DPS that is, you know, a shotgun wind DPS aside from maybe Noir. And for the electric team, you only have Blanc that you can put in there. So I wanted to test that maybe because of how close Asuka and SBS are to Liberalio and SBS, that maybe putting Liberalio on one of these weaker teams would actually benefit more. So I decided to test both the shotgun team and the electric team. So first off, we have Tove, Leona, Liberalio, Doro, and Drake. So in this team did 3,777,000,000 damage, which is 118% of the base team with Blanc and Noir, replacing Leona in this team. However, when you look at the Leona, Asuka, Doro, and Drake team, that team did 3,520,000,000 damage, which is 110%. And so in this scenario, the Liberalio team is only about 8% better than the Asuka team, which I don't think is the move here, because the amount of damage that you lose running, for example, the Crown and Nayuta team is a lot higher than the amount of damage that you gain from running Liberalio here over Asuka. But that might not be the case for this electric team, where Asuka is doing 100% at 3,606,000,000 damage, as opposed to Liberalio's 4,219,000,000 damage, doing 16, almost 17% more damage than the Asuka team, which in terms of damage comes out to be about 600,000,000 damage, which may very well be more damage gained than the damage lost in this team right here. So this could be a viable team for the electric team, and Liberalio having the ability to buff Cindy in this team. So the gain from running Liberalio over Asuka in the electric team is about double the gain from the gain that you get while running her in the shotgun team over Asuka. So that is something to consider when team building, especially for a solo raid. But that's about all that I have to say about that. And lastly, let's go over the investment. So for the investment, I would recommend going for 10-10-10. She is going to be the meta unit for win teams, and she is on par and maybe even better than Asuka when running her with both Crown and Nayuta. And so the damage gain that you get for Liberalio going to level 3, 7, and 10 respectively is 11%, 10%, and 9% for skill 1. It is 9%, 9%, and then 7% for skill 2. And then 4.5%, 4%, and 5% for the burst skill. And last but not least for this section, we have the overload lines, and I would recommend going obviously with elemental and attack, the standard, and ammo and charge damage as the additional line. And with that said, let's go over my final thoughts on Liberalio. So overall, Liberalio is really good, but she is not busted. And to me, that is the perfect place for her to be in, and not only her, but all future units as well. You know, having units that fall in line with the existing units in terms of damage is a good way to make them attractive to pull, while not exploding the power creep and making existing units irrelevant, just like Roppy Red Hood did. And people will pull for these units anyway. While Liberalio looks like she will replace Asuka, Asuka is in no way outclassed to the point that she will never be used again, and these units are interchangeable, which gives people the freedom to use the characters that they want to use, as well as allowing the people that miss Asuka in the Evangelion collab to finally catch up. So overall, I'm really happy with how Liberalio turned out, and ultimately I'm placing her in the triple S tier alongside with Asuka and SBS. She is not a must pull if you already have Asuka and SBS, but a welcome addition nonetheless. I think that's about all I wanted to say, so like the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on the next one.